then also what we're going to do is we're going to go onto the library's database and see if they have any of these lost and ancient texts that the oldest people in the world have had. Which they do have, because you can look it up right in their library. Oh, hey there. I didn't see you there. What's up, guys? We're here at the library. So we're going to study some theology. Ooh, it's going to be fun. Books. Old medieval paperbacks. Remember books, guys? Medieval. I'm here to answer a few of your questions that loads of you asked me once you find out I studied theology, which you're never finished studying. There's always a new philosophy or a new cult that springs up, or ones that are in the past that relate to now. A lot of information is recycled. In theology, you can study a lot of different subjects. I was curious in all of them, all of the theologies from all over the world and how they relate. As a chess player, I always like to attack my situations at its root. What I would do logically is go back as far as I can go in all of history and see maybe what the oldest people in the world thought, what the oldest people in the world believed in, and their actions and why they believed in it. Because if we can find the oldest people, then that'll be the closest to the history of what the origin of all mankind believed. Because everything else after that would have to have some type of influence from that. So let's go back and find out who's the oldest people in the world. We have to get straight into DNA, archeology, linguistics, science, bones. We find out that all DNA leads back to Africa. It's just kind of common taught. That means that all of the three mother races, which is Mongoloid, Caucasoid, Negroid, they all come out of Africa originally. So all DNA leads back to Africa. Archaeology. Now, archaeology, where are the oldest bones in the world found? From the oldest, find that they come from Ethiopia. Ethiopia has the oldest bones in the world found so far, which is consistent that that DNA originates in Africa. So Ethiopia is getting the clout right now. I have such beautiful cultures all over the world. So when we dive into the Ethiopian culture and study it, we find out that in linguistics, the Ethiopians, and they're extremely into academia, they have preserved what they call their oldest language, which would in turn be the oldest language on the face of the earth, potentially. This language is called Ge'ez. It's spelled G-E-E-Z, but it's their oldest language. So now we want to see what the Ethiopians, the oldest people in the world, where all DNA leads back to, with the oldest bones in the world, with the oldest language in the world, what they potentially have copied and preserved in their oldest language. So it starts to get really interesting after that. The oldest language that they have were Ge'ez, being the word of their language. It means in the beginning. What the word of their oldest dead language called Ge'ez means. It means in the beginning. This is crazy. And the Ethiopians will tell you, we are the oldest people in the world. They'll tell you to your face. Guess what their oldest texts are? In their oldest dead language. Now go ahead and take a guess. Oldest books in their oldest dead language that's been translated finally into English only in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We didn't have these books translated into that until then. Are called, in the Ethiopian dead language, called the first book of Adam and Eve, also known as the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan. The oldest books that the Ethiopians have in their oldest dead language is called the first book of Adam and Eve, also known as the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan. Go ahead and let that sink in for a second. So yes, it's a big deal. Rumors that are going around these days because of some stuff that they watch on TV or History Channel, which is for the masses. I used to watch History Channel when I was 14, so I don't blame you. It's not our fault that they are preserved until this day. Now, let's look it up in the library and see if they have these texts in the library here. Now, you can find these books in Borders. I personally have 2 copies. My mom had these in college, so I stole a copy from her, and I ordered one on Borders. I promised to give them back, Mom, under the Lost Books of the Bible, and the Forgotten Books of Eden. Okay, this is how much I've... Oh, look at that. Books of the Bible. So it will be found in this book because it's a part of it. Not only do they have these books, and this is widely known in Africa and Ethiopia and everywhere else, it's just that in Western education, we're the last to find out about it. These books were translated into the late 1800s into English, so they weren't left out of the Bible on purpose, because the accurate English translation of the Old and New Hebrew Testament, it was translated in the 1600s. So these books were not even found out by Western academics and Western scholastics until the late 1800s and early 1900s. So nobody left them out. It was just that they didn't know about them. So I have copies in Syrian, Egyptian Coptic, Arabic, Greek, Latin. So they have all of the Middle Earth languages. It's found in its most complete form, the least amount of words missing, in its Ethiopian form, which makes sense. So the Ethiopians have this text. Now, these books are so important to Western academics and scholars in theology. This is when these books were first translated into English and the German languages. This is what one Western scholar said. And this is, this copy was published in England in 1882, got transferred and published in New York. Finally, this is what one scholar says. He says, "This is, we believe, the greatest literary discovery that the world has ever known." This is just one scholar's side note in the early 1900s after these texts have been translated into English. And then he says, its effect upon contemporary thought and molding the judgment of the future generations is of incalculable value. Okay, these are the most African texts you can have. These are the oldest texts you can have. It's the most African, oldest belief system that you can believe in.
Portuguese is one of the oldest languages, if not the oldest language we have in the world. Long history. Back home, Ethiopian scholars, if not all of them, most of them would say it was the first language of human beings. And texts that are read are from the Bible mostly and other holy scripture. People go to poetry school, church music school, and then they learn how. But during the last emperor's time, Western education came, and that traditional education was going parallelly like it is now.
So this is just straight up on the internet, okay? The Book of Adam and Eve, the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan, translated from the Ethiopic. So they mean from is the Reverend who helped translate it. July 12th, 1882 is when they were translated. The gnarlier thing is actually reading the text. So before I read it to you guys, because I know you're not going to read it because I've been telling you to read it for 10 years and none of my friends do. So I'm going to be reading you clips up off of this book. They're just sitting there. The Books of Adam and Eve. It says down here. The translator adds here, creator and ruler, to him by name, the living God endowed with reason and speech, creator of all creatures, be glory. This is from the Ethiopian who helped this Reverend, English-speaking Reverend, translated in 1882.